and shocking secret. After lonely rancher makes 24-year-old widow pregnant, Ethan Hale lived a life that very few people truly noticed. His ranch sat far from the main road, surrounded by wide fields, old fences, and land that had seen many seasons come and go. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, Ethan was already awake. He followed the same routine every day, feeding the animals, checking the fences, and walking the land he had worked on for most of his life. The quiet never bothered him. In fact, he had grown used to it. Silence had become his companion. People in the nearby town knew Ethan as a serious and distant man. He did not talk much, and when he did, his words were simple and short. He was not rude, just reserved. Some believed he chose to live alone because he liked it that way. Others guessed he carried pain he never shared. The truth was that Ethan had learned to survive by keeping his emotions buried deep inside. Life had taught him that hope could be fragile, and loss could arrive without warning. Years ago, Ethan had dreamed of having a family. He once imagined laughter filling his home and someone waiting for him at the end of long days, but those dreams slowly faded after a series of disappointments that left him guarded and careful. The ranch became his world. The animals depended on him, and that sense of responsibility gave his life meaning, even if it was lonely. Not far from the ranch, a small house stood empty for a long time. It had belonged to an elderly couple who moved away, and no one seemed interested in renting it. That changed when Lena Moore arrived in town. She was only 24 years old, yet life had already tested her in ways most people never experienced so early. She had lost her husband in an unexpected tragedy, one that left her shocked, heartbroken, and unsure of who she was without him. Lena did not come to the town looking for attention or sympathy. She wanted distance. From memories, from pity, and from the constant reminders of her loss. The quiet countryside promised peace, and the small house near the ranch felt like a place where she could breathe again. When she first arrived, she kept to herself, unpacking slowly and spending hours sitting by the window watching the open land stretch endlessly ahead. The townspeople noticed her immediately. A young widow was not something they saw often, and curiosity spread quickly. Some people felt sorry for her. Others whispered questions that should never have been asked. Lena felt their eyes on her whenever she went into town for groceries. She dressed simply, spoke politely, and avoided long conversations. Grief had made her cautious, and she did not yet have the strength to explain her pain to strangers. Ethan first noticed Lena on a quiet afternoon while repairing a fence near the road. He saw a small car stop near the old house and watched as she stepped out, looking around with uncertainty. She seemed out of place, yet determined. When she struggled to carry a heavy box inside, Ethan hesitated. He was not used to offering help. Still, something about her reminded him of how hard starting over could be. Without saying much, he walked over and lifted the box for her. Lena looked surprised but grateful. She thanked him with a soft smile that faded quickly, as if smiling still felt strange to her. They exchanged names, and that was all. No long talk, no personal questions. Just a brief moment of kindness. Over the next few days, their paths crossed occasionally. Ethan would see Lena walking outside early in the morning or sitting on the porch in the evening. Sometimes he nodded, sometimes he stopped to ask if everything was okay. Their conversations remained simple, but they slowly grew more comfortable around each other. There was no pressure, no expectation, just two people sharing quiet moments. Lena noticed Ethan's routine and admired his discipline. She could see how much effort he put into his work, how carefully he treated the animals. Watching him from a distance made her feel safe, as if the land itself was protected by his presence. Ethan, on the other hand, noticed how Lena carried her sadness with dignity. She never complained, yet her eyes often reflected a deep sorrow that words could not express. One evening, a sudden storm rolled in. Heavy rain and strong winds filled the air, shaking the windows of Lena's small house. She felt nervous being alone, especially since she was still unfamiliar with the area. When the power went out, fear crept in. She tried to stay calm, lighting a candle and sitting quietly, but her thoughts kept racing. Ethan noticed the outage right away. After making sure his animals were safe, his mind went to the small house nearby. He knew Lena was alone, and without overthinking it, he walked through the rain to check on her. When she opened the door and saw him standing there, soaked but calm, relief washed over her face. He showed her where the backup lantern was and explained that storms like this did not last long. Lena thanked him again, her voice trembling slightly. That night, after he left, she realized how much his simple concern meant to her. It was the first time since her loss that someone had looked out for her without asking anything in return. As days passed, trust slowly formed between them. They began talking more openly, though neither shared too much at once. Ethan spoke about the land and the seasons, Lena spoke about adjusting to a new place and learning how to be alone again. They avoided discussing the deeper pain, but it was always present, unspoken yet understood. Ethan found himself looking forward to their brief conversations. It surprised him. He had grown used to emotional distance, but Lena's presence gently challenged that habit. She did not demand anything from him. She listened, and sometimes that was enough. Lena, too, felt a change within herself. Being near Ethan reminded her that life could still hold moments of calm and connection. She was not ready to let go of her past, but she was beginning to believe that her future did not have to be empty. Neither of them realized that these quiet beginnings were leading them toward a turning point, one that would test their strength, their choices, and the lives they thought they understood. For now, though, the land remained peaceful, and two lonely souls continued to meet under open skies, unaware of how deeply their paths were about to intertwine. As the weeks passed, the quiet bond between Ethan and Lena grew stronger in small, almost unnoticeable ways. Nothing dramatic happened at first. There were no sudden confessions or big promises. Instead, their connection formed through simple moments that slowly filled the empty spaces in their lives. Every morning, Ethan continued his routine on the ranch, but now he sometimes glanced toward Lena's house while working. If he saw smoke rising from her chimney, he felt a strange sense of comfort. It meant she was there, starting her day just like him. Lena, on her part, began waking up earlier. She liked watching the sunrise over the open land. It reminded her that each day still had a beginning, even when the past felt heavy. Their conversations became more frequent. Sometimes Ethan would bring fresh vegetables or eggs from the ranch and leave them at her door. Lena always thanked him, sometimes inviting him to sit on the porch for a few minutes. They talked about ordinary things, weather changes, the quiet town, and how different life felt compared to where they had lived before. These talks were calm and slow, giving both of them space to breathe. Lena was still learning how to live with her loss. Some days were easier, while others felt heavy from the moment she opened her eyes. On those hard days, she struggled to focus or even leave the house. Ethan noticed this change without her saying a word. He never pushed her to explain. Instead, he treated her the same way every day, with patience and respect. That consistency helped Lena feel less alone. One afternoon, Lena gathered the courage to share a little of her past. She spoke about her husband, not in detail, but enough to explain the depth of her grief. Her voice shook as she talked, and her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. Ethan listened quietly. He did not interrupt or offer advice. When she finished, he simply nodded and told her that her pain made sense. That simple understanding meant more to her than long speeches ever could. Ethan also began opening up in his own way. He spoke about the ranch and how it had been passed down through his family. He admitted that he had once dreamed of a different life, one filled with people and laughter. Over time, he explained how disappointment had taught him to stay guarded. Talking about it was not easy, but Lena's presence made it feel safe. The town, however, did not remain quiet. People noticed that Ethan and Lena spent time together. Some looked at them with curiosity, others with judgment. Whispers traveled fast in a small place where everyone knew each other. Lena felt uncomfortable whenever she went into town. She worried about what people thought of her. Ethan noticed her tension and reassured her that opinions did not define who she was. Still, the pressure was real. One evening, Lena invited Ethan inside for dinner as a way of saying thank you for his kindness. It was a simple meal, nothing fancy, but it carried deep meaning. They sat across from each other, sharing food and stories. Laughter appeared for the first time, soft and unsure, but genuine. For Lena, it was the first time she had laughed without feeling guilty. For Ethan, it was a reminder of what connection felt like. As night fell, the mood shifted. The quiet of the countryside wrapped around them. Emotions that had been held back for so long began to surface. Neither of them planned what happened next. It was not about impulse or carelessness. It was about two lonely people seeking comfort in a moment when their defenses were low. They both knew the situation was complicated, but they did not stop themselves. After that night, everything felt different. The following days were filled with mixed emotions. Lena felt confusion, fear, and a small sense of comfort she could not deny. Ethan struggled with responsibility and worry. He did not want to cause her more pain. They talked openly about what had happened, agreeing that honesty was important. They decided to take things slowly, understanding that their situation was delicate. Lena found herself reflecting deeply. She questioned her choices and worried about what the future might hold. She did not regret finding comfort, but she feared the consequences. Ethan reassured her that whatever happened, she would not face it alone. His words were calm, not dramatic, but they carried weight. Life on the ranch continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Every interaction felt heavier, filled with unspoken thoughts. Lena noticed her emotions shifting more often. Some days she felt hopeful, other days overwhelmed. She tried to keep busy, cleaning the house, taking long walks, and writing in a notebook to organize her thoughts. Ethan became more attentive without being overbearing. He checked on her regularly, offering help and support. At the same time, he gave her space when she needed it. This balance strengthened the trust between them. They were learning how to navigate a connection built during a fragile time. Neither of them realized yet how deeply that single moment would affect their lives. For now, they stood at the edge of something unknown, trying to hold on to calm while uncertainty quietly approached. The land remained peaceful, but change was already on its way, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Time moved forward quietly, but something beneath the surface had begun to change. Lena tried to return to a normal routine, yet her body and mind felt different. At first, she blamed stress. She told herself it was grief, worry, or the pressure of living in a small town where people watch too closely. Still, the feeling did not go away. Some mornings, Lena woke up feeling unusually tired. The energy she once had for long walks or household chores seemed to fade quickly. Food she normally enjoyed suddenly felt unappealing, while simple smells made her uncomfortable. She tried to ignore these signs, convincing herself that her emotions were simply catching up with her. But deep inside, a quiet fear began to grow. One afternoon, Lena sat alone in her small house, staring out the window. The land outside looked the same as always, open, calm, unchanged. Yet her life felt anything but calm. After hours of thinking, she finally faced the truth she had been avoiding. She needed answers. When the realization came, it felt unreal. Her hands trembled as she sat on the edge of the bed, trying to steady her breathing. The confirmation brought a mix of emotions that crashed into her all at once: fear, shock, confusion, and disbelief. Tears filled her eyes, but they did not fall immediately. She felt frozen, as if time had stopped. Plana was going to have a child. The thought repeated in her mind again and again. She was young, alone, and still healing from deep loss. She worried about how her life would change, how the town would react, and what this meant for her future. Most of all, she wondered how to tell Ethan. For hours, Lena stayed quiet, holding her thoughts close. She walked around the house, touching the walls, the table, the chair near the window. Everything felt suddenly fragile. That night, sleep did not come easily. Her mind raced with questions that had no clear answers. The next day, Ethan noticed something was wrong the moment he saw her. Lena's smile was forced, her eyes distant. He asked if she was feeling well, but she shook her head and said she just needed time. Ethan respected her space, but worry followed him throughout the day. When Lena finally decided to speak, it was late afternoon. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the land. Ethan listened quietly as she told him the truth. Her voice was soft but steady. She did not cry. She simply spoke, as if saying the words out loud would make them real. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle heavily on his chest. For a moment, he could not speak. His mind struggled to catch up with the reality of the situation. Shock was followed by fear, then responsibility. He knew this was not something that could be ignored or taken lightly. After a long silence, Ethan told Lena that he would stand by her. His words were calm, but they came from a place of seriousness and care. He admitted he was scared too, but he believed facing the truth together was the only way forward. Lena listened, unsure whether to feel relieved or overwhelmed. News has a way of spreading, even when people try to keep it quiet. In a small town, changes rarely go unnoticed. Lena began to sense the shift in how people looked at her. Some were kinder than before, while others seemed distant. A few whispers reached her ears, though no one said anything directly. The pressure became heavier each day. Lena worried about her reputation and how her life would be judged by others who did not know her pain. She questioned whether staying in town was the right decision. The idea of leaving crossed her mind more than once, but the thought of starting over again felt exhausting. Ethan, too, felt the town's attention. People who once ignored him now watched closely. He heard quiet comments when he went into town for supplies. Some showed concern, others doubt. Ethan had lived with judgment before and had learned to endure it, but this time it felt different. It was no longer just about him. Lena struggled emotionally. Some days she felt a small sense of hope. Other days, fear took over completely. She worried about whether she was strong enough for what lay ahead. At night, she sat quietly, placing a hand over her stomach, trying to understand the life growing inside her. It felt unreal and overwhelming. Ethan tried to be supportive without taking control. He checked in on her daily, offering help and reassurance. He encouraged her to speak honestly about her fears. When she cried, he listened. When she needed silence, he respected it. Their bond grew stronger, but so did the weight of the situation. One evening, Lena admitted she was thinking about leaving town. She feared the judgment, the stares, and the pressure. She wondered if disappearing quietly would be easier for everyone. Ethan listened carefully. He did not try to convince her immediately. Instead, he told her that whatever she chose, it should be for her peace, not fear. She realized that running away might not bring the relief she hoped for. No matter where she went, she would still carry her story with her. What mattered was how she chose to face it. As weeks passed, Lena focused on taking care of herself. She adjusted her daily habits, rested more, and tried to stay calm. Ethan continued working on the ranch but made time for her whenever she needed support. Their relationship was no longer just about shared loneliness. It was now tied to responsibility and uncertain hope. Both of them understood that their lives had changed forever. The future was unclear, filled with challenges they had not planned for. Still, beneath the fear and pressure, there was a quiet determination growing. They did not know what the next chapter would bring, but they knew they could not ignore the truth anymore. Unseen by the town and unnoticed by most, a turning point had arrived. What had begun as a quiet connection was now shaping into something that would test courage, honesty, and the strength to face consequences head-on. The days that followed were heavy with tension. Even though Lena and Ethan tried to continue their routines, something unseen stood between them. It was not anger or regret, but uncertainty, the kind that makes every quiet moment feel louder than it should. Lena began noticing changes in Ethan. He was still kind and supportive, but sometimes he seemed distant, lost in thought. His words became fewer, and his eyes often drifted toward the far fields as if he were looking at something only he could see. Lena sensed that he was holding something back, but she did not push him. She had learned that some truths came out only when they were ready. The town's pressure did not ease. Small looks, quiet pauses in conversations, and sudden silence when Lena entered a shop made her feel exposed. She tried to remain strong, reminding herself that she owed no one an explanation. Still, the weight of judgment was tiring. One evening, Lena sat alone on her porch, watching the sky turn soft shades of orange and blue. Her thoughts were restless. She knew deep down that something was missing from the story Ethan had shared about his past. There were gaps, moments he skipped over, questions he never answered fully. When Ethan arrived that evening, she could tell he was uneasy. He stood quietly for a moment, before sitting beside her. The air felt thick, as if the land itself was waiting for something to be said. After a long silence, Ethan finally spoke. His voice was calm but heavy. He told Lena that there was something important she needed to know, something he should have shared earlier but didn't know how. Lena listened carefully, her heart beating faster with each word. Ethan explained that years ago, before he became the quiet rancher everyone knew, he had lived a very different life. He once trusted the wrong people and made decisions that followed him longer than he expected. A misunderstanding from his past had spread through another town, damaging his name even though the truth was never fully heard. He had left that place to escape the labels and whispers. The ranch became his refuge, a place where he could rebuild his life quietly and honestly. But the past never truly disappeared. It only stayed hidden, waiting for the right moment to return. Lena felt her chest tighten as she listened. She realized that the loneliness Ethan carried was not just from disappointment, but from being judged without being understood. Still, part of her felt shaken. She wondered why he had not trusted her with this truth earlier. Ethan admitted that fear had kept him silent. Fear of being seen the wrong way again. Fear of losing the fragile connection they had built. He told her that he did not want secrets between them anymore, especially now that their lives were connected in a deeper way. The truth did not explode like a storm. Instead, it settled slowly, quietly, like dust in the air. Lena felt torn between empathy and doubt. She needed time to process what she had heard. She asked Ethan for honesty, not perfection. Ethan agreed, knowing that trust could not exist without openness. Word of Ethan's past soon reached the town. It was unclear who shared it first, but once it spread, reactions followed quickly. Some people looked at him with suspicion. Others believed he deserved understanding. Opinions divided the community, drawing invisible lines between judgment and compassion. Lena felt caught in the middle. She faced questions that were never asked directly, but were clear in the way people behaved around her. Some treated her with concern, others with quiet distance. The pressure grew stronger, testing her strength and patience. That night, Lena cried alone in her house. Not because she felt betrayed, but because the future felt heavier than ever. She wondered if trusting Ethan had been a mistake or an act of courage. Her thoughts moved between fear and hope, unsure where to settle. The next morning, Ethan came to see her. He did not defend himself or demand understanding. Instead, he apologized for not telling her sooner. He told her that whatever she decided, he would respect it. His honesty, even when it hurt, showed growth and accountability. Lena realized then that life rarely came with clear answers. Everyone carried something unseen. What mattered was how people faced their past and whether they chose responsibility over avoidance. Over the following days, Lena took time to reflect. She thought about her own journey, how loss had reshaped her, how judgment had hurt her, and how silence could be both a shield and a burden. Slowly, her anger faded, replaced by understanding. She spoke with Ethan again, this time with clarity. She told him that trust would take time, but honesty mattered more than a perfect past. Ethan accepted this without hesitation. For the first time, he looked lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The town did not change overnight. Some people held on to their opinions, while others softened. Life continued, as it always did, moving forward regardless of individual struggles. Lena and Ethan stood together, not because everything was resolved, but because they chose to face uncertainty with honesty. The secret that once threatened to divide them had instead forced truth into the open. They knew harder days might still come, but for now, they had faced the past instead of running from it. And in doing so, they found a fragile but real sense of strength, one built not on perfection, but on truth, responsibility, and the courage to stay. The weeks that followed were not easy, but they were honest. Lena and Ethan moved forward one day at a time, learning how to live with the truth instead of hiding from it. There were still moments of fear and doubt, but there was also a growing sense of calm that came from no longer pretending everything was simple. Lena focused on taking care of herself and preparing for the future. She learned to listen to her body and slow down when she needed rest. Some mornings she woke up feeling hopeful. Other days she felt overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility ahead. Still, she reminded herself that strength did not mean never feeling afraid. It meant continuing even when fear was present. Ethan became more steady and open. He no longer avoided conversations about the future or his past. When people in town questioned him, he did not argue or explain too much. He simply lived his life with honesty and consistency. Slowly, some opinions began to change. Not everyone accepted him, but enough people saw his actions and understood his character. The ranch became a place of quiet healing. Lena spent more time there, walking through the fields and sitting under the open sky. The land gave her a sense of peace she had not felt in a long time. She began to imagine a future that did not erase her past, but grew alongside it. One afternoon, Lena and Ethan sat together watching the sun lower over the horizon. There was no rush to speak. The silence between them was comfortable now, no longer heavy. Lena finally broke the quiet and spoke about her fears, not just about the coming changes, but about whether she truly deserved happiness again after loss. Ethan listened carefully. He reminded her that pain did not cancel the right to hope. Life, he said, was not about replacing what was lost, but about honoring it while still moving forward. His words were simple, but they stayed with her. The town slowly adjusted. Curiosity faded as daily life took over again. New topics replaced old rumors. Some people reached out to Lena with quiet kindness. Others remained distant, but that mattered less as Lena grew more confident in herself. She realized she did not need everyone's approval to live honestly. As time passed, Lena felt a deeper connection to the life growing inside her. What once felt frightening now brought moments of quiet wonder. She spoke softly to the future she was preparing for, promising to face the world with courage and care. Ethan prepared in his own way. He worked harder, planned carefully, and thought deeply about the kind of person he wanted to be moving forward. He knew he could not change the past, but he could shape the future through his actions. There were setbacks, days when doubt returned and nights when sleep was hard to find. But those moments no longer felt unbearable. They faced them together, with patience instead of panic. By the time the season began to change, something else had changed too. The fear that once controlled their decisions had loosened its grip. In its place was responsibility, honesty, and a quiet kind of hope. The story did not end with perfection or easy answers. Life rarely does. But it ended with growth. Lena found strength she did not know she had. Ethan found purpose beyond isolation, and together they learned that facing truth, even when it is difficult, can lead to a future built on courage, understanding, and acceptance. What began as loneliness had turned into something deeper, a shared decision to move forward honestly no matter how uncertain the path might be.